Hey everybody, Jeremy here from ShadetreeVintageAuto and ddautosalvage in Logan, Utah. Today we're going to talk about my Dart. Had a whole bunch of questions about the different parts that I've used, what I think about them and all of that. So I'm going to kind of go over that with you, as well as I put about 600 miles on it. So I need to kind of just retorque things, make sure everything's still copacetic. And I'm trying to track down this really bad oil leak that I think is coming from the brand new rear main seal, unfortunately. But anyway, we're going to go over things right now. So I'm going to go ahead and start here at the engine compartment. So this is the 340 that came with the car. I did not completely tear it down. We did start pulling it apart. The bearings were all good and everything. The cross hatching all looked good, so I didn't worry about it. It does just have a mild cam, and I don't remember the specs. I have them somewhere, but it's just a little bit overstock. But got the moroso valve covers, which look really cool, but they leak really bad. They take a lot of work to make them work. I did put a stud kit in the oil pan, as well as the valve covers. That came from Rogue Bolt on eBay. Highly recommend all of that stuff. Got a vintage Edelbrock RPM and a Carter Competition Series AFB. All that stuff's awesome. That's all old school. So we're going to go on with like what you can buy new. I did use Doug's headers. I did a bunch of research on them, and everybody said they were about the best, them and TTI. I went with Doug's. I don't like how TTI has kind of a slip piece on some of them. And then I was told that the Doug's fit tighter underneath, and I'll show you that in just a second. But they installed really tight, really nice. They are, like everybody said, they're tight. I mean, everywhere they are tight. I would highly recommend doing a torque strap or something that you can kind of see right there, because there's not any room for movement. But I love them. They look great. They seal really well. Like I said, about 600 miles on the car and haven't had any leaks or any problems. Underneath, you can see they do not hang low at all. And that's anybody that has A-bodies, they know that's the big problem, is your headers are the lowest point on the car. So highly recommend the Doug's headers. They're around the $800 price point, which is pretty expensive, but dude, you get what you pay for. And these are part number D453, and they're the ceramic coated ones. Thumbs up on those. MSD, everybody kind of already has used MSD stuff. MSD, I think, is probably the best you can get realistically, and it's affordable. I think between the box and the coil and everything, it's like $400 or less. Really good electronics. Car starts up really easy. It's awesome. It just has the crane cams, double roller timing chain. Don't really need to do any reviews on that. I did get a Champion aluminum 3-core radiator. I drove this down the strip in Las Vegas on a Saturday night when we were down there just a couple weeks ago for Muscle Cars at the Strip. And traffic was miserable. I'm not running a fan shroud. I've explained why, but I'll do that again here in a moment. The car got up to about 215, 220. Really pleased with the radiator and the cooling system on this. I'm running a 190 thermostat. Everybody said do a 180, but I couldn't actually find a 180. The reason I'm not running a shroud is I had an electric fan that I bought for it, but it didn't fit between the water pump and the radiator, and I didn't have time to get one, so that's what I had to use. I now have one that I'm going to put in that's an electric with the shroud and everything. Should be good. Trying to think anything else I need to note on the engine. Of course, the Excel wires. Those are old school. Awesome. So we're going to go with the steering now. So this is the original manual steering box for the car, but I sent it out to Firmfeel in Vancouver, Washington, and had them rebuild it. It's a 16:1, I believe, ratio. So it's like just over 3 turns, lock to lock. It's awesome. It's really cool to drive. It's like you're steering around a bend, and it's just like that. It's really cool. The only issue with it is nothing that Firmfeel did. It is that it's manual steering, and it's 16:1 ratio. So when you're stopped or trying to pull into a parking spot or something, it's kind of tough, but well worth it when you're driving. And then, like I already mentioned, the Schumacher torque strap. I don't know that you can get those anymore, but they would be relatively easy to make with like a Heim joint and stuff like that. And I think seems like I heard the Schumacher's going to start doing some more stuff. There's a new owner, so hopefully they make those because they are really cool. Let me move this light away and we'll kind of get underneath a little bit. So I have basically a stock replacement Milodon oil pan on it, and I'm very happy with it. I love it. It looks cool, even though you can't really see it. Definitely matches the gold moroso up top. And then I also did the brass Milodon casting plugs, or freeze plugs as some people call them. The only issue that I'm going to say with the Milodon oil pan, and it might not be the Milodon's fault, I have the OEM windage tray in the 340, and it did take a little bit of massaging on the windage tray to make it fit with this oil pan. The other issue is it says on the packaging and everything that you can use the factory pickup tube. You cannot. You have to use the Milodon pickup tube. The factory one's not even close, will not work. So just take note of that. I do have the Summit high torque starter up there. That is what was recommended with the Dugs. It winds up good. I mean, this car fires right up. Now we're going to kind of go over suspension. So I've got a big Addco sway bar. It's awesome. It works really good. I wish there was a better way for it to mount, but it's all right. It's sufficient and it works well. I've got PST front end kit in it. It's stiff. I did get the polygraphite. It does make noise like everybody said that it would, but it's really stiff. I also have the really large torsion bars. Those are PST torsion bars. It's stiff, guys. When I first got in it, the first like couple miles I drove it, between this and the rear suspension, which we'll go over, it rode like a farm truck, maybe even worse. It was tight. But after sitting on the trailer for 600 miles, going from here to Las Vegas for muscle cars at the Strip, it loosened up quite a bit. There's few things I still need to button up. Like after I drive it, I noticed that the transmission line's actually hitting the steering. All this kind of stuff is things that a lot of times you won't ever notice until after you drive the car and everything kind of settles. And then that's why it's important for safety reasons and everything to, 500-600 miles, put the car back up on jack stands or a lift, get under it, check everything out. And I'm going to do that. I'm not going to video it because it's boring. But I am going to do all of that and just make sure everything is copacetic. So I'm going to go ahead and actually get under the car now, and we'll go over a few more things. Okay, so we're going under. Like I said, there's a major oil leak. Don't judge. I'm going to take care of it, but it's like all over. It's pretty bad. But anyway, first thing we're going to start here are the USCartool subframe connectors. These things are really cool. They're weld in. And so we actually just, we welded them, zipper weld, I think is what it's called. So it's not a full seam, but they go right to the floor. They mount to the back. We actually tore it on accident loading it up. Welded it solid here, but they're really cool. Really firm up the car. Like I cannot believe how much stiffer the car feels as far as flex and everything, just with these. They're like in the 300 range, I believe. They're not too expensive. They are kind of involved and complicated to install. You've got to clean everything and do some work. I haven't done my fuel line and everything how I want to do. We kind of got in a hurry so we could get to Vegas. All that stuff's going to get done later. So don't judge on that, but highly recommend those. I used a B&M really deep transmission pan, and honestly that's the lowest thing on the car. I'm not sure that I like that, but that's not the pan's fault. The pan is awesome. Between that, the transmission cooler, everything. The transmission only gets to about 120 to 130 degrees, even in traffic or when I'm beating on the vehicle. So it's pretty cool. Plus it has a boss on the other side, so you can put a temp sensor right in it. I do have, it's hard to see, I've got the B&M flex plate in there. It's awesome, works well, mounted up good. It's got a 2800 stall that is by Summit, and then there's a B&M shift kit in the transmission. It works great. This thing shifts super firm. It will even actually chirp them into second gear when you're really hitting it. I did have the driveline rebuilt. It's balanced, has all the U-joints in it. And then it's just the stock 323 Sure Grip rear end. I have never even actually had that out. I still need to do the bearings and everything at some point, but it's actually pretty good. Back here on the rear suspension, I've got the CalTracks, and I got the Calvert Racing monoleaf springs, which are really cool. Like I said, it was really stiff at first. It's still fairly stiff, but it's not crazy bad. I think part of the reason also it might be stiff is I've got coilover Monroe shocks on the back. You can kind of see. They're pretty good. Everything combined, it's stiff. This thing hooks up like crazy. I try to do burnouts, and all it does is push the front wheels. Front wheels are locked right up, and it's just pushing them. Everything works great. There's no wheel hop, anything like that. Also, I'm running Cobra tires. Those tires hook up well. They last well. I run them on almost every one of my cars. I love them. They're great tires. And realistically, you want your car to hook up. Burnouts are awesome. Burnouts are fun. But really, you want your car to hook up and go. So I'm not going to complain about not doing big smoky burnouts, even though I really kind of want to. But everything came together really well under here. It does have a brand new fuel tank in it, as well as a sending unit and everything. One of the things that I've heard and learned is cleaning out your old existing fuel tank only works part of the time. And usually you're ending up pulling it out a time or 2 or 3 later to get more crap out of it. New tanks are not that expensive. I got that one off of eBay. I cannot remember who I got it from. It was about 220 bucks. I think it was another $40 for the sending unit, or $50. All brand new, and I haven't had any problems with the fuel system. So I'm really pleased with that. I'm pleased with everything about this car, how it came together, except for the oil leak. And I'm not exactly sure what the issue is with that, but you can see oil coming down the exhaust, everything. I've been working on it, trying to clean it and find it, and I just can't. It's coming from between the torque converter and the engine up inside. So unfortunately, I think that the engine's gonna have to come out, or the transmission's gonna have to be dropped, or both. Actually, with the headers, when we installed the headers, it was kind of a major operation. You had to have the transmission on a jack stand down here, engine up on a cherry picker, and you had to just kind of put them all together and make everything fit. It was kind of fun. It was a 3-person job, but once it's in there, it's awesome. It's really cool. Anyway, there's a couple other things I'm going to show you, so I'm going to get up top. Okay, so moving to the interior. First off, don't mind the mess. It's a little messy, but oh well. Anyway, I wanted it to look pretty much bone stock just looking in, other than the red seat belts, which are just a funny little thing that I have that I like, red seat belts. But anyway, the factory gauge cluster, the speedometer broke literally about 20 miles into my first drive, but has just a generic temp gauge, just a generic alternator gauge, and an oil light. I really wanted to know more. So down here below the dash, I installed autometer gauges, and I kind of made them hid. I wanted them black so that they didn't stand out. I've got the water, the oil, the trans, and the volts. I am really pleased with those gauges. I mean, there's not much to say about them. As long as you install them correctly, they are going to work just how they're supposed to. But they look really cool, and definitely something I'd highly recommend just so you have better instrumentation and you can know more about your car. It's kind of fun to learn these cars, just the little different things they do. Like I said, it has a 190 thermostat. It gets to 200 on that gauge. Right at 200, it drops. Goes back down to about 188 and then rides about 188 the whole rest of your trip. Also, you can kind of see that I did a battery. I relocated to the trunk. So I'll show you that here in just a second. But it's very important. I've got the ground over here on this side. It's very important to have a good ground and have good quality cables. Don't get that aluminized copper crap because it's junk. Spend the money and get the actual copper cable. Another thing I just want to point out, I do want to have an actual fire extinguisher in here that's mounted, but always, 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 always carry a fire extinguisher in your car. Classic cars specifically, it doesn't hurt to have them in modern ones, but in your classic car, always have one. It's really cheap insurance. How many cars do you see stories of on Facebook or wherever that their car burned to the ground? If they would have had a fire extinguisher in there, it still may have burned, but at least you tried. At least you were able to do something to help prevent it. So always carry a fire extinguisher in the car. Also, you notice I didn't have a tack. I had a really cool vintage tack for the car, and unfortunately it didn't work. So I found this NOS Dixco. It's a little bit bigger than the one I had and a little bit bigger than the one I wanted. So I've got to build a bracket so I can mount it about right there. I think that should look good. Like I said, lots of little things I still have to do on the car. Anyway, so here's the battery relocated. I got an Optima. Anytime you have a battery in the trunk, you want to either have a battery box with a vent or get a gel cell. The normal lead acid batteries, they actually cause a lot of gas, and it's kind of an explosive gas, so it can cause an explosion. So be sure to have like a gel cell or a battery box with a vent that goes actually out of the car, not just into the trunk. So something very important. Here's another thing that I'm got to install still. LED tail lights. They actually fit right inside the tail light. So that's going to be cool. I can't wait to get those all in. A lot of stuff to do to get this car just buttoned up a little bit more. During the summer, depending on how everything else goes with the other projects we're working on, the glass all may come out again. Headliner and vinyl top may get installed. Or I might just enjoy it how it is for now. Because really want to just get a couple things buttoned up on it. And honestly, might not even get those finished. I've got a plan in place where I need the Super Coupe, which is over here. The Super Coupe needs to be running and driving, and like not just running and driving, but dependable by the end of next month, because I plan to drive this car for the first time since it looks like 1990 is the last time this car was started or driven. I plan to drive this car from Logan, Utah to Seaside, Oregon, and up into Washington and back. So about a 2,000-mile round trip. And honestly, I don't know anything about it right now. We haven't even started it yet. Hopefully, as soon as I get back from Van Nuys, which is this week, I'm leaving tomorrow actually to go to Spring Fling. As soon as I get back, I want to start working on this. I've got a whole bunch of stuff coming for it, and a whole bunch have already come. I've got an aluminum intake manifold. I had a Thermoquad carburetor built by Ken Manley out in Canada, who makes or just rebuilds them and does such an excellent job. I've got some really cool Milodon parts for the car. Just a bunch of just random little things. I want to get this thing going and daily drive it during the summer because they're just so unique. I showed a couple people this car and they don't even know what it is. It's Dodge Aspen Super Coupe, very rare car. I believe it's been garaged for a long time. We bought it at auction. You can see here 1990, and I found a couple coins inside the car. I found some gas receipts, and the newest thing inside the car that I found was 89. So everything kind of leads up to that. So watch for this car because it's going to be coming up soon. There's going to be a whole bunch of video on it. I'm going to start it right here, drive it out that door, and put it where the Dart is right now. And that's going to be the first time it will drive. Then I'm going to tear into it and do a few things. Hopefully everything goes as planned and I can drive this to the coast. Then this car we're gathering a few parts for, but I might not touch this car till probably next year. Seems like in the poll that I did here, everybody wants me to work on the Roadrunner instead of this. Everybody go check out the poll and tell me what you want, this or the 69 Roadrunner. Both are going to be cool. Both are going to have 4 speeds. Both are going to have multiple carburetors. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff on both of them. Anyway, so just tell me, and be sure to like and subscribe and hit the note or turn on the notifications. Thank you all for all of your support, for following me. I really appreciate it. This is so incredible. Also, all the stuff through DD Auto and Salvage, their support for me and what I'm doing, it's just incredible. If you haven't already, I've got a couple videos of some cars we're selling, and I've got a whole bunch more cars coming up that we're selling, so we can continue finding, buying, and selling more cars and finding a couple more projects for ourselves. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and have a wonderful day.